for us to build the form like this.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It makes you able to debug, right? Sometimes we get requests from manager, project manager. Oh, can you add another? You know, can you support creating multiple objects at the same time? When you submit, you can, and then within this object, for example, when you create a user, can you make sure it create a company? Can you make sure it create the correct payment information? But that's like multiple models. A good full stack web developer has to think to this process.
Just take a look at Google Form, and Google Form does not look very complicated.
Yeah.
So it's just a very simple form. Actually.
Oh, but try to implement Google Form, and then you're like, let's clone Google Form. Really, it's a very useful project because you have to, support multiple question type, and when you press save, everything gets saved, from the survey response to the choices.
What do you think it is?
Different question type.
But we are changing to the SBI single byte
What is it?
application.
Single page. Yeah.
Yeah, almost everything we handle in the JS. And I don't
In handle where?
in the JS fabric to react the parameter to click into
The server.
yeah.
I think it's still very similar. So if you build this backend and then you can move more and more to the front end, it will look like Google Forms easily. So they end up being very similar.
So basically,
That's-
with a single page application, you just build the form differently.
Yeah.
But the data you submit to
The-
the server can be
the-
the same.
So I see
Still the same,
sometimes
yeah.
your API has to be even better, right? For the single page application to work. The API has to, in one call, return you all the questions and choices and everything, nested structure, and then one call from the browser,
Yeah.
submit every 5 millisecond, 5 second, or when the user, make changes. So API building is it takes work as well. So what we did just now, I think, is important, even you do single page application or not. Yeah.
I mean the step of rendering the form might be not necessary anymore.
Yeah. So you no. Then you use a template.
Yeah.
But the idea of this
You still have return a JSON object.
you still have to worry about this guy. I mentioned how you understand this one, right? Let's say actually you might have this question ID 123 in here,
Yeah.
and this is now a template, and this is a variable. And then when you render on single page app, it actually changes number. Do you guys use Angular or Backbone or
Just like form.
or React? It's the same idea because you render a component and you have to replace all this ID with the right thing. Okay. Welcome back. We'll talk about user management today. Someone tell me what authentication is. Start with the easiest one. What is authentication?
To authenticate somebody.
Authentication. What do you need for authentication?
To know who that is.
You need a server or a backend, right? And basically, you just need to check whether the user who he says he is. That's authentication. So, credential, username, password, or email password, or fingerprint, or eyeball. That's just credential, right? And in database, it means you already registered, so it's stored there. Okay? It can be really confusing because when it used the word authorized user here, it's like, what? I thought it's authenticate. So sometimes they used, they're mixed together. But the process is authenticate is just about who you are, right? Authorization is about
What you can do.
what you can do, how powerful are you, or right? A bit more on that. So authorization is preceded by authentication, right? Or is it like you authenticate first, then you authorize? Makes sense, right? You cannot authorize without knowing who they are. So okay, authorize is giving permission. Okay, after you already have them as users. Great. So let's take our survey app. Hmm? Custom. Let's learn to do it from scratch. How would you do this? It's here. It's like authorization and authentication, right? This is just authentication, right? How do we do this? Kha, Kha,
Right question.
hello. Đâu có ngủ à? Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I implement this right now, how do you implement it? Only signed user can create a survey. What do you use? You guys know, right? What do you guys use? If you implement this user story,
You ask him. Ask him just answer.
Kha, can you answer the question?
What's up?
So I say only sign-in users can create a survey. So it means if a visitor go to this, it will go where? Get. Okay, everyone, come on. Try to answer the question.
Get current user.
No. When a guest, not sign-in, okay? When guest.
So just we go to get session, new session
So
to login
Go
page.
to register.
okay, so redirected to
Login page.
sign in or home page, right?
Yeah.
You can even maybe throw an error that say access denied. So how do you implement that?
We
Before
are using,
filter.
Huh?
we are using
Before filter.
can.
Okay, you use can. But what if you implement yourself? Okay, before filter.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we do before filter? Class, Surveys.
Survey.
controller.
Controller. In dev. New.
Okay. So you say before action.
Before action. Check. Login.
Okay. So just like I think you can call authenticate user, right? Now, how do you implement this method?
The current user.
You want to put it here because they all can inherit. Notice in Ruby, this private is just private, but even though it's private, this guy can still inherit. It's like fake private. So, but you put private or protected, it doesn't matter. Okay.
User.
Huh? Authenticate user. All right.
Then
What is it?
current user. Under current user. Then we redirect to home page or login page.
New session path alert. Sign in first. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. You just finished. Good job. Then, but that's just authentication. Let's get to authorization. Now, let's say if we do this, right? And after we have that, then how can you make sure this happens? How can we do this? Hmm? Okay.
Yeah.
Who's helping me here? Okay, another check. So class surveys controller. Dev new. Now here's when okay. So you say authorize instead of before action. Now let's say before. I guess you can just do that here, and then you before action again. Okay. So okay, authorize admin. Let's say call authorize for now.
But for what?
Hmm?
I mean, can you filter the action for example just edit?
Sure. So let's say for now, just because it's new and create. Yeah? Okay. So how do we implement this method?
Like if the
Kai, you still there, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, it still makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All right. So how do you do this, guys?
So we get a current user
If current user and
and
current user
be admin.
is not admin,
Then we go to home page and with the notice like permission denied access denied.
yeah. Now sometimes some people render. You can also do render text access denied. Uh, status 403.
Yeah.
So 404 is page not found. 403 means I'm not going to give you that page because permission is. If you go to GitHub, sometimes you view a private repo and yeah, they just show, hey, not found, but it's actually 403. All right, that's good. Then, but then you're like, what about admin and creator? Can edit the survey. So how is this different now? Now this is hard.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy this guy and but now okay, especially when you have before action or before filter, but now it's called before action, right? If you use it for only and accept too much, you see this is a problem at tiny post right now. Don't just don't use before action. Just put down here. It's just much easier to see. Only use before action for something that's really for everyone, right? This here is just so much better. Similar to the load variable, right? Like similar to like load survey. It's when you read this, it's so much clearer than go to the top of the file and try to find.
Yeah.
So what happened here is I have survey equals survey.find. So yes, you can call load survey, and then here you say authorize. Now what do you pass in?
Current survey.
Damn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then now down here, okay, down survey here.
Either admin or if not admin,
This is a bit crazy, right? So if survey dot creator equal current user,
then
right? Then basically you're fine.
yeah.
Else, if current user, so you can actually do maybe like return. That's fine. Return if current user dot admin,
Yeah.
right? But if not, then you can just do that. Yeah? Sounds good? But your code is getting crazy now, right? This is the code is noisy. How can we do it better? How can we do better? And now this notice this authorized is now like you cannot put it in the application controller because it's a survey. It's a survey. It's ugly.
You authorize a survey.
So how can we do it? Refactor it.
So after
So here's my solution to refactor. Let's refactor, right? Basically, refactor. Uh, too confusing, hard to test. Now also you see how do you test this? I already wrote test for you, so let's say down here spec surveys. All right, this is I create a module to sign in, right? I use Capybara. I think Cucumber is just too much unnecessary, but here, if I don't log in, visit this page, access denied, make sense? And then you just test it, done, you test. If you are a user, right? And then you just go to create a page then I allow. So in this case, I test, allow admin. But let's say if I allow users, right? If I allow admin, my test makes sense, right? Okay. And then next is like for survey, and I have non-admin, admin. I can run this. You can sign in as a non-admin, and then you test that. Oh, this not enough permission if it's admin. But then you start writing a lot of tests for each action, and this action is testing the whole application. Visit this route. Something is wrong. Something is wrong, because then you have to write a lot of tests.
Just for permission.
Yeah, because what's happening here is my requirement is this. Okay, my requirement is admin can visit survey controller, right? And admin can visit, right? And all action. User, let's say maybe you can say visitor can visit surveys controller and show action only. Right? Member, user can visit surveys controller and accept destroy action. Right? And then user, when visiting index action, can only see his own survey. But admin, when visiting index action, can see all survey. You see now how things get more complicated? I haven't even added company and department. If you and right? So how do we do this? Let's refactor. And here's the beautiful version of it. Basically, you can pass. Let's see. What if you can do this? Class surveys controller, and let's say in what action do we have? Let's say action new here. You just say authorize whether this user can access user control survey controller and new action. Does it make sense? Okay. So down in my class application controller, dev, what? Authorize controller action. Okay, you ready? I have just a plain object call permission dot new. All right, so let's say if I just have basically I have this thing called current permission. Do I want to allow this controller and this action? Does that make sense? Current permission allow controller action. That make sense?
How about user?
Yeah, but what is current permission? Then you pass in. Again, you don't want to put this permission into your user model. People are tempted to do current user dot permission, right? No, right? Because then you're just adding all these objects onto. So that's just a class that has this context. How would you implement this permission model? Class permission. So you want to do def initialize. What do you pass in? No, huh? User, right? And you just need to do like attr reader user, and then this is user equals user. That makes sense? You know, what's the short way of this? I can actually just also just do inherit this from. That's the same. I mean, it gives more, but you can also do that. So it's cool. I can. So a class can inherit from a struct, and then it has this same initializer. All right. So what method do I need to implement? Controller action. But let's say in here you can just say if user is admin, return true, right? So then you can just say return true if user admin, right? Yeah. Then what do you want to return? Maybe if return false. In this case, it's like crazy. User dot guest, dot nil, and well, user dot admin, that will fail, right? So that will crash. So let's try this first. Return false if it's remember, visitor cannot create a survey. If user is nil and controller equals to surveys and action equal new. Huh? But now it's huh?
We will have a lot of conditions.
Yes. But you can refactor that easily. But now you can test this object. Imagine testing this in aspect. It's extremely easy. It's beautiful to test. So how do we test it? Let's say I have this permission. I can test anything like this. I just test for admin. I just test survey new like this. So then I can test this. Basically, new become show. This will be edit, update, destroy, and what else? Is that it? Create. You see? And I can do the same thing, but now for user, how do I test this now? And then I test first and I implement it later, right? So this is context user. That's like member, regular user, right? Regular user. Then what is this user thing down here? I just call it, non-admin, right? It's easier to call it non-admin. So non-admin, admin user, and regular, yeah. So non-admin user, but it's different from visitor, okay? And again, here is non-admin user. So now here, you don't allow this person to not allow,
Not true.
not allow,
To allow but return.
not to or to not,
Not true.
to
They're
not,
both okay.
huh? I don't know. They're both good. They're fine. That's the idea, right? Not there yet, but it's close. Okay, so we will get better, and then guest. Basically, all of this is not. If you don't create the, if you don't have, if there's permission, you pass nil to it. So let's say this is visitor, wait, guest, and here, this is over here. You pass in nil, right? Everything here will be to not. You see how that's much easier to test than your controller test, right? Okay, let's put it up here. Okay, I'm just
Yes, cancel.
huh? Okay, yes. See, you're paying attention. Okay. Now, but how to implement this? How to implement this? Do we want to put everything in here? Hey, it's actually not that hard. How about I have this thing called lookup table. If an admin I will return all the permission I give. So for example, I will return surveys.new, right? Surveys edit, create, blah blah blah, right? User, then I only give this user the ability to again, this is the same as that, right? Surveys new, but there's definitely no survey destroy, for example, right? And this is what? Say guess, right? As an example. Okay. So if I have this, then down here, sure, the case nil is always false already. Okay. It's a bit weird for the case of nil here. So maybe I'll just say get user role. Okay. In this case, if user is nil, you can create a row model, right? The row of method, right? So that's fine. So this guy, just one object, surveys, show. That's it. So what happens down here then? Allow then becomes lookup user role. Yeah. And then you just do here controller. Okay.
Include.
Exactly. Controller action. It's however you name it. It's just a string, right? Include what? Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes, you guys are paying attention. There's no if condition, right? Almost. So now you can have different role, but it's clean, and now all your tests will pass, right?
The only problem happen occasionally when the current user is a creator.
Yes. Okay, let's do that next. We're very much further along. Okay. Right. So that's the next thing is maybe now you might have to have an initializer that take an object as well. Not just user, but also an object.
What? You laughing?
Okay. Does it make sense?
For what?
So you can check. There are cases when you want to check whether the user is the creator. But now you don't want to use this permission object class. You want to use something like class survey permission. Yeah? And now you can do initialize. What is it? User survey. And what is in here? Basically, you call permission parent, right? Super survey. But also, right? Yeah.
Allow survey.
So let's say, so here you have survey equals survey. And that, right? So what's happening here is you have the permission, but now you can override when you say now def allow, right? And also let's say now you would say allow controller becomes less important because controller is survey controller.
But I can use this asset controller and action to call the super, to check the super first, and then I mean you check the permission in the super class.
Yeah,
And then
exactly. So let's say even if I just only check this is just that action, how many actions do you have? CRUD, right? Create,
Yeah.
read, update, destroy. So basically now you can actually say, if you just want to call super, you can call it with, you know, controller surveys action. For example, there are many ways. Now when you do this, you can create in your authorized, you can say authorized add survey. It will pass in your current user and the add survey. That's how, you know, can works. So basically you can implement can easily, right? And how can you access the view? So can basically did something like, you know, can did something in the view where you know, methods in the view. Here, authorize check in the view here. Pretty much that's quite easy because I think can does this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How can you do this?
So we add the helper method.
Controller, application controller, right? Let's implement this. Def can action object or resource,
Yeah.
and then down here helper method
Yeah. That's right.
can. That's it. And then down here it's just basically, you know, current permission dot allow. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is how we create current permissions. When we create current permissions.
It's just basically you just similar to current user. You can cache it. It just wrap you know, a wrapper around permission dot new.
But when we create a survey permission, when to create permission?
So that depends on, now your code can get more complicated. In survey controller, basically here in this permission, right? There are two ways. One, you can create a survey permission. Down here you can check different condition. Or you can make this permission take care of it. Which way do you want? So that's like, of course, go back to using a strategy instead of inheritance.
Yeah, somehow.
So, all right, this is one way to extend it, but you will face some limitation, and you may not want to extend it this way. Let's say, okay, so let's do it this way here. Survey permission. You know, this resource, right?
So is there a way to just to initiate all kind of permission and then evaluate and reject on a reject type policy or an accept type policy?
Recheck.
So it is have, so we have maybe we have a lot of permission and then yeah, it can implement do we support
Here,
big
so
object?
I think I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
So let's say if I have this, right?
Yeah, it's factory something.
So, you know, class permission wrapper, and it's very simple. New, right? Resource here. So technically, you, if you really want, okay,
Yeah.
you can have like class name,
Yeah, exactly.
resource dot class
And
dot name,
no. Yeah.
and then dot control,
Okay, yeah,
like
class
permission,
permission, and then
and then
initiate that
using
class.
like, you know, class dot constantize dot new,
Yeah. That's it.
and then pass in the,
Result.
you know. So that's the idea, yeah. So that's, now you have survey. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, if resource is nil, then you just say if resource, then you do this. Else, then you don't do permission dot new, right?
Yeah.
So again, users passing the user here to just like user. I'm just give you an example. That's not the best way to implement it, but there's nothing that prevents us from doing this. When you write tests, you can keep changing your code and write better code. I can change my mind, 20 times a second, and my code still become better and better because now it's very clear, right? You see how each of that, So then it's like, how can you do the surveys index permission checking to let admin view all the surveys? So that's called scope. So maybe now in your permission, you actually have to take a scope.
These are responsibility.
Yeah. So okay, think about that, right? Also, scope also related to this, right? And then collaboration. So I want I'm going to take. So I have some more notes here for all of you guys to just see if you type it yourself. I actually type this as I implement it. Start looking really stupid like that, and then we factorize it to look like this, right? We refactor it, and then as you refactor, you accept more controller, and then you do lookup. It's become easy to test. This is cool, right? You can just define a matcher, then your test look really clean, and then you can just copy and paste many test cases, right? Now I want to talk about some concepts. Okay, this is crazy, but let's say what are roles in a user? Admin, maybe staff, moderator, guest, member. Have you seen this, right? If you store it as a one column in the user table, when you store it as a user role table, pros and cons of using the column.
We might have this admin of this department, but just
So what's the pro? Simple, right?
simple, yes.
But what's the cons?
But doesn't support multiple
How to have multiple
roles.
roles, right? What if I tell you you can still have multiple roles? Do you know how to do it?
Have a join table.
No,
No.
one table.
One table store multi-value.
Multi is
Okay, you can
like CSV file.
Okay, that's one way. What's another way?
Really?
There's another way.
There are multiple roles.
What if I give you admin? Okay, the value of admin is 0,
I know.
staff is 1, moderator is 2, guest is what?
Four.
4, member is 1, something like that. So when I say now my role is 5, what am I? I am staff and guest, which is nonsense, but So let's say accountant or something like that, right? Different. Visitor. I can be a user, but visitor. Well, role is, let's say my role is, right, something like that, right? So that's how you have. This is called bit masking.
Yeah,
Bit masking. Because if you put it in 000 and then you just combine them, and it's very fast in database lookup, because you just take two binary representation and you merge them and the one stay. So that's like adding them.
But it doesn't support when we have a new department, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's next. Now, this is useful, and a lot of people use it. You see it in Linux, permission, file permission, right? Okay, next. In each role, you have a right. What are some right? Example, right?
Read, right? Okay.
Yeah, CRUD. These are right. Create. When you create a survey, you can read, update, and destroy. Now, so you already see how the role is defined. You can have a column, or you can have the whole table. But when you have table, what relationship is it?
Row and right.
Has and belong to many. So many to many, right? User and role. Many people can be admin, but many, right? This one admin can be many people, but a person can also have multiple permissions, multiple rights, multiple roles, right? But in admin, the right of an admin is access everything. The right of a moderator is access half of the things. Okay? So if you really want to implement this, you actually have something like this. User, and then you have role, and then there's a table called user role. In there you have user ID and role ID. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So then now you have user has many roles through user role, right? And of course this one belongs to user, belong to role, right? Same thing, has many users through user roles, right?
Yeah.
Cool, huh? But then, like, what about right? Then you have right. What is it? Name. So this right can be like, surveys, new surveys, or you can call this right, controller in action. You can merge them like this. But let's say right on controller in action. Yeah, I'll just call it name. And then you can now have role has many rights, and right also has many names, has many roles. And then you also have role, right role through right role. You see how hard it is right now?
When I see right row, I just think about left row.
Yeah, but you don't. So alphabetically, what's first? Oh, I is before O, right? That's why you call it right roll, not roll right. So so here it's actually you have right ID and roll ID. Okay. But then when you implement user, now you can have many.
User row and
Then now this is crazy.
Right,
User now has many rights through roles, and that's like joined to many level. But now what if you have groups? Holy crap! So uh, so then you have user. User has many groups. Same thing. User group, right? But then each group has many roles. You see what I'm saying? Now you include group in between this user and role. So think about the different complexity, but you can simplify it because user belong to groups, and then there's some group roles, right? And then again, don't forget, role has rights. Yeah? Alright. So, but then what's a right? It's not as simple as surveys new, What's a right? This is
yeah.
that survey new, survey edit, right? That's the right to access a certain page. I haven't talked about this one. What about the right if you update a report or a survey? What if the report you can approve, but only you can change that column? So that's the right to access a column. For example, if I can promote you from your status as probation to long term, and that's a column in your user table. Because I'm an admin, I have the right to change that column. Someone else does not have that right, right? So that's the right to certain attribute in a model. But then you also have the right to the scope in a class. If I'm an admin, I can see the list of all the users. But if I'm not an admin, I can only see maybe the active users. I cannot see suspended, deleted users. Yeah,
Cool.
brain hurts. So now
Bread is food.
you guys use can, right?
Yeah.
So can. But now that we did that, this gem doesn't really work, with Rails anymore. So there's, I think you guys use can or something like that.
Yeah.
But the idea is ability is similar to permission, right? Except that this is getting a little different. It's a bit of too much magic. I really don't like this. Trust me, in your you don't find this useful at all because it's just not over time, right? You can't really use load and authorize response, and then you have all these other condition. You want to load first, and then you do something about it, and then you authorize, and so can becomes a little hackish. So I actually there's one library I like more. You see, a lot of time actually you want to load first and you authorize later, passing the action and the object. So we already figure out how to implement it, right? That's cool. Check out the second tool. This is Pundit. Has anyone tried it?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's not have too much of Rails DSL magic. You know what I did up here is magic. The class of constant ties. Where is it? Here. Device will use something like that. I know. Can. So policy say, right? Minimum, right? So it's like minimal approach where it's nice, simple, similar. It provides you a filter, but then it's called policy, and you create for anything. This policy include two things: the actor, the person, the one who's like who need the permission, and then the resource, which is like, what's the object you want to have access to. So here, there's a policy for a user on post model, right? So it's as simple as that. If a user is admin, then and the post is not published yet. If the post is not published yet, or user is admin, then any user can update the post. Make sense?
So update your right.
Right. That's right? So it's just plain. It's just better. You see, it doesn't inherit from anything.
Yeah.
It's better than can. Now, how is it used? Then you can inherit more policy. So my approach in permission is half like this, half like can. So you can override it. You can have a special policy, post policy. Okay, you can do a lot of things in there. So now application policy is just a class that provides you this authorized method. So okay, let's see. You see how it called that directly? So you don't need this class to be anything special. You pass current user, current post. You just put all the logic in this class.
It is more text.
Oh yeah, but you can make it shorter, right?
Now,
For example, here it's the same. So how would you implement this method? This method is this method.
okay, see.
See, this method is actually that's def authorized, right? So it's the same shortness. Yeah. So as your admin list here is like index action in controller, but it allows you to read and like it. Here's the helper in the view, but instead of using a can question mark, you just use object method. So it's less meta programming. That's all. So what is this? How do you implement this policy method? Policy method here is just basically pass in the current user and post,
And result.
right? Yeah, which is this one. It's really, really nice. So you can add as many more, and again, you can see this is a faster way of building initializer. and it can be anything. It can be a widget, a dashboard, but you just implement the show method in here and you're done. It's really cool.
So if I add more permission, I need to add more call.
Any like in add more call,
Call. I mean,
yeah, but it allows you to test it easily. And when let's say you need to build a dashboard, you can add your own dashboard policy instead of using can like let's say dashboard on response, and then you go to response. What's can what is
I use can
there's a ability, right? So then you have a post. It's very similar, right? But here it just they try to improve it a bit more because it's object oriented and plain object. But that's when you can do things like scope, and then it's like, oh, okay, scope is where if admin you can see everything, if not admin you can only see articles that have been. That's how you deal with it. You can add more stuff. Sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes it's useful. All right. So if you read this, it's actually now you understand how it works. You can and they also have some clever strategy on using after action instead of before action. It's the same thing. After action before the view is displayed anyway, because a lot of time you have to load the objects first. Using before action doesn't make sense because you can't load. Then you have to have another before action before that before action, right? So verify this. That. Now there's one newer gem. Am I here? Last one. I know we were here. So take it. And this is a newer gem that I think it's pretty cool. So far, there is a problem, guys. What if you change your mind? What if you change your mind to give the access to surveys update to a visitor, to someone, like to a guest? So there's some tool you can actually dynamically add rights. In all the tools so far, the right have to be in the policy file, right? In my permission file. Like, you remember my lookup table? My lookup hash up here? What if this should be dynamic? What if this should be in the database? So you can load it from organization table. Or like, for company ascension, these guys have access to these pages. It's crazy. You can do that, but it has to be one step at a time. You improve your system, you can load it there. So this one is cool, it's new, it's another policy like stuff. But it's, you can, I think if you read it, like it's, the whole topic, it's too much for me to cover in one lesson, but can try to add more. I think, but it's more useful if you guys, okay. We focus on assignment 2 still. And this lab, I'll write some exercise on adding role and permission here. But please, between now and Tuesday, try to implement the response view. It will be very good learning, and I'll share my code on how to implement that. Still, when we finish this course, we want to have a Google form clone. Even better if we can do the permission checking. All right, Ka. Thank you for attending. Hello? Okay.